Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. On this episode, we have Tony, who is a researcher from the state of Georgia. He has had several Bigfoot encounters and a lot of experiences while exploring the woods of Georgia. His research group was at one point in time contacted by the Forest Service to conduct an investigation on the area due to an influx of Bigfoot reports. He claims the Forest Service would shut down the area while they were researching the activity. I believe the Sasquatch are able to evade people due to their stealthy camouflage, excellent eyesight, and a great sense of hearing. They are very observant and they almost always know when you are in the forest, and rarely do they get caught by external visitors. Georgia has been featured on the show Finding Bigfoot, and there are many law enforcement agencies who have claimed to see these elusive hominids. Have you seen a Bigfoot before? If so, please get in touch with me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com if you would like to share your report with the people and help spread the news to like-minded people with similar encounters in the same region of the world. I am almost to 100,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, and I would like to thank all the people who have supported the channel and to the good people who have told their stories on Sasquatch Theory. If you guys can, please subscribe to the channel, and I would greatly appreciate it. Alright guys, with all that being said, let's dive into Tony's Bigfoot encounters from the state of Georgia. Alright Tony, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing good. How about you?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for asking, and it is certainly a pleasure to have you on the show. Tony, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from, and your Bigfoot encounters and experiences from the very beginning, please.
All right. Well, yeah, it's good to be here. I thank you for having me, and I mean, I really appreciate it. Originally, I'm from Pennsylvania. I've been in Georgia since about 86, something like that. Around 89 is when I started researching. I started, I was working at a convenience store let me go back to go forward. I'm 53 years of age. I started researching around the age of 19, at 19, 20 years old. For myself, I was always a believer in Bigfoot. There was never any question whether or not if this thing was real, if it was a mystery or anything like that. I've always had a belief in Bigfoot. To me, Bigfoot was just like any other animal. And growing up, I watched a show. As a child, I watched a show called Bigfoot and Wild Boy, part of the Sid and Marty Krofft Super Show. Also, of course, I watched Boggy Creek by the time I was able to watch it, because I think that came out in 72. So by the time I was able to watch it, I was about 5 or 6 years old. So this would have been about 76 or 77 when I was able to watch it. And then also another Bigfoot movie that I love was called The Creature from Black Lake. And I go between the two of those as to which one is my favorite, because I both like them equally the same. And I say that just to, give people and let people know that I was always a Bigfoot believer. It was like nothing real serious. I looked at Bigfoot as just another creature in the woods, another animal in the woods. So how I got started in 1989 was I was working at a convenience store. I was working third shift, and, I would be in there by myself at night at this, during the third shift. And, back then there was not a lot of traffic. So I would have some of my friends would come up and hang out with me, and some of the police officers that were patrolling would come in and hang out. And we would talk about heavy metal, ghost stories, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, anything creepy. We were talking about and having a discussion. And one of the guys asked, he said, I know a guy that does research on Bigfoot. Could he come up here? And I was like, yeah, sure. So he comes up. I think it was maybe a week later. So he comes up and he's telling us about the expeditions that they've been on, and the things that they've encountered and all this. And it was interesting. It was really, really interesting. And he asked me if I would like to go on one. I was like, nope, no, I don't need to prove anything. I already believe he exists, so I don't need to get out there in the woods and look for one. Well, this was June of '89, and they had planned a trip for October. Now there were two guys there that were adamant about going. They were like, "Yeah, we'll go, we'll go, we'll go, we'll go." So in between June and October, I had befriended the guy, and I started, going down his house, and his older brother would be there, and they would, be talking to me about Bigfoot, going over the some of the evidence and some of the files that they had. They had an old computer. I don't know if any of y'all might not remember this, but floppy disk. They had a lot of information on Sasquatch on floppy disk, and they were going over this stuff and showing me stuff, and they really, helped me to understand the Boggy Creek footage a little more. So again, it was very, very intriguing, and I still was not committed to going. Finally, I guess it had been around September, close to time to go, and I decided, well, if these two go, I'll go. Well, when it come time to go, the two that were supposed to go never did go, and I wound up going, and I have been going ever since. Um, that's my beginnings in Bigfoot. Outside of Bigfoot, I'm a family man. I have three kids and two stepkids. I'm married. I'm a Christian, and currently in university, going for my bachelor's degree. So that's pretty much a little bit about myself and how I got started.
Well, I appreciate you for
And,
sharing that, Tony. What happened when you had your first experience, your encounter? Where were you at? What were you doing that day? And describe everything with as much detail as possible.
okay, so like I said, I joined this research team. The research team at the time was known as the GBRI, Georgia Bigfoot Research and Investigation. The leaders of that group was Jan and Lamar Allen. So I think it would be not my first time, not the first expedition that I went on, but it would have been around my second or third. I can't really remember which one. I get those two confused. Is where I saw my first track. Now, for most people, when they the response, my response to my first track was pretty much equivalent to those who see their first creature. 'Cause like I said, I've always believed in Bigfoot. Always, there was no doubt that this thing existed. It'd be like just seeing another animal in the woods to me. However, when I saw my first footprint, all the emotion, the reality set in. The belief became a reality at that point when I saw my first footprint. The size of this footprint was about 13 and a half inches long. Now, at the time, I wore a size 14 shoe. I was able to put my foot into the print, but this on each side, it was probably about a half inch to an inch wider than my foot, and it was barefooting in the woods. So that was when I first the reality of it set into me. It would be another 3, possibly 4 years later when I saw my first creature, and this was in the same area that we saw the track, but it was off a ravine down in like a valley type thing. It was an opening where, as it was me and two others. We were down there just scouting, looking for signs. It's probably around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, real bright outside. And as we were looking, I saw this thing like take off out of the corner of my eye. I seen it take off, and when I seen it take off, I immediately took off after it, and I can see it going through trees. Now, as it was running through the trees, it was pacing me. It wasn't outrunning me, and neither was I gaining on it. It just kept the same pace. It like kept me within eyesight where I can see it and it could see me, but it was, moving and stuff between the trees, and I was going after it. I can't tell you how far we ran, but the two that were with me, they wasn't. I don't know what happened to them. They couldn't keep up, so I think they might just went on back to camp. Well, it stopped, and when it stopped, when I say it stopped, I couldn't see it no more. So I believe that it stopped. And once I stopped running, it was dead silence in the woods. There were no birds. The wind wasn't blowing. No wood sounds whatsoever. And so and by this time I had researched enough that I knew that when the woods are silent, there's something going on. So I just hollered out. I said, "Listen, I'm not running no more, and I'm not finna run back to camp." I said, "So if you want to follow me, you can. I'm going to back out, and I'm going to walk back to camp." And I slowly backed up a little bit, turned, and I walked back to camp. And on my way back to camp, on either side of me, you can hear where these things were following me, like walking with me. And they followed me until about, I want to say about 100 to 75 yards, possibly 50 yards outside of camp. And they stopped. And I just went on back to camp. That was the first occurrence, or the first sighting. My second sighting, this was probably 5 years later, and it was in the same area. And I was up there. We were up camping in a place that we called the swamp, and it really wasn't a swamp. It was pretty much just a creek and a road that went beside it. But we called it a swamp because it was a low-lying area, and it looked like a swamp, but it really wasn't. So me, my ex-wife, my son, my oldest son at the time, he was probably 2 or 3 years old. My father-in-law, my mother-in-law. So we went up there just camping. Wasn't a expedition, wasn't doing any research. We were just camping. So it began to get dark, and me and my father-in-law were up. We were talking, and we were loud, we were laughing, and just having a good old time. Well, the women wanted to go lay down because my son, he was getting a little restless. He was, it was time for him to go to bed. So we decided we were going to walk down and sit on the creek and talk, because it was a good distance away from the camp. Well, how this area was, there was a little trail that ran parallel to the creek, and it went down and it turned to go down onto the creek. So as we're walking down there, talking and carrying on, this thing like walks out, like steps. How to put it? It didn't step on the trail, but it kind of stepped to the tree line. And as me and my father-in-law walking, we stop because we see it, and it like stops because it sees us, and we're able to see the eye shine and it doing this swaying thing. And I looked at it, and I tapped my father-in-law. I was like, "What the heck is that?" And he was looking eye level. And when he looked up, he went to draw his gun, and I had to stop him from drawing his gun. And this thing it looked at us for a while, just sat there, just swaying, like swaying back and forth, like going like it. I don't know if it. I don't know if it realized that we saw it. I believe it did because it stopped when we stopped. But it looked at us and then it just turned and it sounded like a herd of buffalo going through the brush. And we didn't go after it because we had the women were back at the camp and everything. So we got back to camp and told them what happened. But that was my second sighting. Always, whenever we went camping, I can't say we had experiences all the time because they were few and far between. We researched this area from 89. Well, they started before I came on, they were doing it in 86. So from 86 up till I think the last time we did any research in this area was 2012. We would have, you know, they would circle the camp, throw rocks in the fire, grunt, growl, never heard them holler. We had the wood knocks, the whoops and whistles, but never heard them holler. And these things, and it was, it was few and far between. One of the things that we had deduced from going up there was that we were dealing with eight different creatures. In other words, we figured out there was a family or a clan that lived up there. The largest track that we found was a 21-inch track. And that was, when we found that, we didn't have any plaster of Paris left because we had poured the plaster of Paris from the other tracks. Where that track was found was behind a car. And what's unusual about that and what makes it, creepy is where we would camp at, there was, it was off of this fire road. So during the time we were the only ones allowed up on this mountain, we had the key to the gate. So the mountain was shut down to anybody else that was up there. So we were the only ones up there. So we were able to park on the fire road. So you'd have this line of cars parked, and then our camp would be set off across the road from the cars. So we would go behind the last car and take a leak. Well, as we were packing up to go, we had poured a couple of tracks, which that was the last of our plaster of Paris for that particular trip. And we're packing up to go, and the girl who owned the car says, "Hey guys, come look at this." So we walk back there, and sure enough, there's a 21-inch track, about an inch deep in the ground, right there where we were going to the bathroom. And we had a guy there that was 350 pounds that couldn't leave a footprint in that area. Couldn't make an impression there. So this thing probably weighed a good 700-800 pounds easy. But we never saw it. We wouldn't have hints of it around. Like we knew one of the creatures was big and it was crippled. Because what it would do, when it walked, it would have it was always a dragging sound. And initially, the guy that's actually seen the creature that got my team to come up there, he said he was out picking ginseng, and his buddy was supposed to meet him up there, but his buddy got sick. So when he was up there, his buddy told him that he would come up there later if he started feeling better. So he goes up there and he's picking his ginseng, and he had caught some movement off to his right. And he hollered. He said, "Yeah, hey, I'm over here," because he was figuring it was his buddy. He said, "Well, after 2 hours, he's realized that he should have been there by now, because it wasn't. But from where he saw the movement, it shouldn't have been no more than about a 30-minute hike." So, but he said when he got that thought, the hairs on the back of his head stood up. And when he looked in that direction again, that creature was standing there. And he said at the time, it was probably 8 feet. And it looked at him for a while. It grunted at him. and it turned and it walked up the ravine. But he said that it looked like had been injured because it was dragging its leg, its left leg. It was dragging on up the ravine. And when we were going up there, when we were researching the area, every now and again we would see his tracks. And what I say see his tracks is pretty much the dragging of his, where he would drag his foot. We would see that. So
Yeah.
that's some of my experience.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you guys were hearing this creature and it sounded like it was dragging his foot, and there was actually a
Yep.
gentleman that encountered the creature.
Yep. That he was when he encountered. All right. So the gentleman that encountered that creature was the one who called the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department called the Georgia Forestry Commission, and then the Georgia Forestry Commission called our team. Now, I don't know the details of how our team actually got intertwined with the Georgia Forestry Commission, but there was a partnership there with the Georgia Forestry Commission at that time. So when we would go up there, they would shut the whole mountain down because they knew we were up there, what we were up there researching, what we were doing.
Wow, that sounds really serious. So the Georgia Commission, that's tied in with the government, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now, since like over the years, the relationship changed because the guy that was over that district, whatever that district or that county or that particular Georgia Forestry Commission location, he retired and a new one came in, and that kind of severed that relationship. But that happened around 2005, I think. So after 2005, it was, we were still able to go up there, but the mountain was not shut down like it once was. So we had to really be careful because you had other people at the time beginning to hike through and stuff like that. Because at one time, there was no human being allowing that mountain except for us when we were up there. And we were up there. We would go up there twice a year, once in early spring or mid spring, and again in late fall.
Okay. And are those the time frames when it's the most active in the area?
Yeah, and one of the things. All right, so one of the things we deduce from that is that they didn't stay on the mountain. They moved through there at these particular times of the season. Like in the spring, I think they were coming from somewhere, going through there, or they're coming from a home location, going through there to another location. And in the fall, it was on a return trip where they would come through that area. Because we have went up there in the summertime a couple times, and absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And in the wintertime, we've been up there and there's absolutely nothing.
Where do you
But
think
all
they
of our
go during the winter time?
I don't know. I don't think, like I said, they were coming from a particular location, and where we were camped at, where our research area was an area that they frequently would pass through on the way to wherever they were going in the spring, and in the fall it was a return trip through there. We didn't have the equipment at the time to really track where they were actually coming from, because I believe they were coming from somewhere. I believe, like, during those times, and this is just my um hypothesis, so to speak, is that they were probably coming from 100 miles away, coming through this area. And I don't know where they were going. I know that particular area wasn't the location that they would stop at. But it would be on the way through. They would stay in this area during the spring and during the fall. But I believe they were traveling from another mountain or mountain range coming through this area.
Yeah, and that's the Appalachian Mountains.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and you showed me the area on the map, I do believe, and it looks like a big funnel of woods that goes through there between Georgia and Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah. It's between Rome and Somerville, a place called Tidings. Because
Okay.
there's a couple of mountains over there that they would say, I remember the rumors of, don't get caught on this mountain. One was called Dirt Cellar Mountain, where they would say, don't get caught on Dirt Cellar after dark. We never was able to get over there on Dirt Cellar Mountain to camp. I don't know the logistics of why we couldn't, but we wasn't able to get over there.
Yeah, I wonder why. Possibly it has something to do with Bigfoot, perhaps.
That's a pot. Well, I mean, there were reports of them being sighted over there. There were reports. So I mean, it's not a I don't know if they were more violent over there. I don't know. I didn't. There was no reports of anybody being attacked or anything like that. Just hunters being scared is what the reports were. Hunters being scared.
Yeah, that's interesting. And on the
Hmm.
map, I noticed there's like a cemetery close to there. I'm not sure how close it is to the campground, but uh,
Okay, so if you're looking at the same mountain, if you're looking at Taylor's Ridge, okay, so Taylor's Ridge, it goes up, and then at the very top, there's a fire tower. Directly in front, directly down the other side of that mountain, and across the street is a cemetery. All right, that particular cemetery, there have been reports of creatures being seen in that cemetery. Now we have researched that cemetery and found uh, footprints, 13 and a half inch tracks. A lot of the tracks that we found were 13 and a half. We have found a couple tracks in that cemetery, and it was normally seen in that cemetery, like like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Where people are just getting up, going to work on their early shifts. That's when it was seen. That's when they were seen in that cemetery.
yeah, and we spoke before whenever I was in South Carolina, and I was telling you about my research areas, and there's always a cemetery next to an encounter area. And
Yep.
for some reason, I don't know if these things, if it's just coincidence or if perhaps they visit people that used to live in the area or if it just has something to do with the paranormal. I don't really know, but there's always a cemetery nearby.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, for me, I think a cemetery is, you don't have a lot of people around cemetery a lot. It's there, but it's not a place that's frequented by people a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
And
And people leave gifts there as far as like flowers, little toys,
yep,
things like that. And maybe they're attracted to it.
yep, 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 and it's a sacred space. It's a sacred space. It's crazy now that I'm sitting here thinking about it. I've never seen a deer in a cemetery. I'm not saying that they don't go there, but like a lot of your animals, I've not seen them in the cemetery.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never seen a deer in a cemetery, and they mow the grass there, and it'd be a
Yeah.
perfect spot to eat out of. Maybe, I don't know. That is strange. That's a good point. I also know that there's a lot of Bigfoot encounters near burial mounds and Native American, ancient sites. I don't know if there's a connection there, but there could be.
Now that's interesting because one of the things that I theorize, like I said, now I have to nothing to prove this. It's something that I theorize, is that Native Americans and Bigfoot, they have been here. So there's I don't want to say a commonality, but a familiarity between them. You know, Native Americans know about Sasquatch, Sasquatch know about Native Americans. So basically, Bigfoot knows people. I'm gonna put it that way. They know people. They know how humans are. and they know those who respect the land. You know, they know those who take care of the land. And one of the things that I believe is going on there, it's not that the Bigfoot are hanging around the burial mounds. I believe that the Indians know where the Sasquatch are and took that place as to bury their dead as a means for the Sasquatch to protect them.
Yeah, that's a very good point there.
And that's just something that just theorizing is that, there's like I said, there's a familiarity, and the Native American would know that this is the domain of a Sasquatch. So we will bury our dead here. And the Squatches, they're not going to go and uproot none of that. For some, they know. And it's a that wherever you see Indian burial grounds, it's a possibility that these burial grounds are protected by the Sasquatch. Hence somebody's you hear about the curses and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
that's just a theory. That's just theory I got.
Yeah, that's a good point. Somebody starts messing with a grave site and you hear Sasquatch, you're going to think the place is cursed.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and you ain't gonna go back.
No, especially if rocks are being thrown out of the woods.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So, what other experiences have you had while doing research out in the field?
Okay, so I have not had any paranormal experiences with Bigfoot. Me personally, I can't say that some of my teammates on my current team have not. They have they in and I have not. Every encounter that I've had with a Sasquatch has been with ape-like mannerisms. Primate mannerisms. I've had them, throw rocks in the fire. I've heard them go through the brush. I've heard them tiptoe through the brush. I've heard them smack against the wood. I've heard them growl. Um, Now, one interesting thing that I don't want to chalk it up as paranormal because I don't know, but it was uh it was pretty weird. Now it wasn't like outlandish weird, it just was weird. So me and another guy were going down into the flat where I had chased this particular one. And as we were, because it zigzags down the side of the mountain, the trail does. So we're in the second or third aspect of going down the mountain of the trail there, and we heard a tree fall. I believe 100% that tree was pushed over because we got to a specific spot. There is no wind at all, and I heard the tree just boom. That's the only time I ever pulled my gun out. In all of my years of research, and I've only pulled my gun out once, and that's when I heard that tree fall. So I looked at my buddy. I was like, "You want to go down and check this out?" He's like, "Yeah." So we went on down there, seen where the tree was pushed over, looked for tracks, did not see any tracks, but you can tell it. Something was there. Again, you had the silence. You know. So I sat on one end of the tree, and he sat on the other end of the tree. Now, this is a tree, so we're a good 30, 40 yards apart. And to the point where, I would have had to, I couldn't have like talking normal, I'd have had to like raise my voice to holler for him. Like, hey, what you got down there? Like that. So we're sitting on one end of the tree, and I'm sitting on one and he's sitting on the other. And what we're doing was debating because we were going to go straight ahead, and going straight ahead, you know how the woods look like they close in on themselves, where it gets real thick and real closed in, and you go through and then it kind of opens up. So we were debating on going through that. And as we were sitting there, I heard whoo, just like that. And it sounded like it was right next to me. Like it did it, like, for example, like it would have done it in my ear. So I turned to look, there's nothing there. And I looked at him and he's looking around. I said, "Did you hear that?" He was like, "Yeah." He said, "It sounded like it was right next to me." I was like, "Yeah, me too." But we never saw nothing. That was the weirdest thing that I've ever encountered. And I don't know if it was something where an effect of, they call it infrasound, where large mammals can project a sound to startle their prey or something like that. Like, it's something that you can feel versus rather than just hear so much. I think tigers utilize infrasound, and they'll do it when they're purring because it's so um, deep when they purr it, like you feel it. Elephants do it because they're large mammals, but it's a sound that emits. And some animals like lions or tigers, when they use it, it'll paralyze their prey for a second or two so they can get the jump on it. But that's the weirdest thing that I've had in association with Bigfoot. Now, do I believe in the paranormal? Absolutely. Absolutely. I've heard ghosts walk in the house. I've heard um some strange stuff. My dad used to my dad was able to see spirits, and he would have us where we're up all night. I lived in a house that was, I don't want to say haunted, but I mean it had things walking around in there. Yeah, and as a Christian, I do believe in a spiritual realm. So, but that's as far as the paranormal goes. I know there's other things out here. What their connection to Bigfoot is, I don't know. I think Bigfoot gets lumped into the paranormal, or certain things associated with it, because we don't have an answer for what Bigfoot is, or why Bigfoot is. So a lot of things are, I don't want to say manufactured, but I think that's the best word, is manufactured to explain what cannot be explained.
Yeah,
As like,
absolutely.
there's I've seen the tracks where they're going, you're tracking it, and the next thing you know, they just disappear. I don't have an answer for that. I don't get why that is. And to explain that, certain theories have been brought up to try to explain that. You know, for me, I don't know. I just leave it as a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, it could be paranormal, but at the same time, they could just be of a higher intelligence on this planet, and it's something that
Yeah.
we don't understand.
Yeah, or something that we're just overlooking. I think a lot of times we get so in tune that there's some things that we're just overlooking. Because you're talking to be like, for example, if I was to come into your house at night I would stumble over everything, knocking stuff over. Where let's say I followed you into your house at night, no lights. You can be at 1 minute right in front of me and at the next minute gone. And far as I understand, you were right in front of me. How could you disappear like that? And you can just be in a closet that I don't know it's there. You can be you can just duck down in your house and I don't know. And my point is, when we go into the woods, we're in this creature's house. It can do things in these woods that we haven't even thought about yet. That's completely natural.
Yeah, that's very true. There's a channel called A Flash of Beauty on YouTube, and they had two guys on there. I think they were from Oregon, and they were driving around a bend in a gravel road, and they claimed they saw this Sasquatch, and then it like levitated about like 4 feet off the ground. Then it turned into like this orb that looked similar to the sun, and then it shot off into the woods. I'm like, man, that's strange. I want to say that's not true, but whenever I had experiences here at my place, they were whistling and doing all kinds of things. And whenever I walked back up there about an hour later after they whistled, I seen these two orange orbs floating through the woods. And I never thought anything of it. I just thought like there was people in the woods with like flashlights or lanterns. And then I started researching the Bigfoot topic because of the experiences I was having, and people started mentioning the orbs. I was like, wait a minute, I saw that whenever I was having Bigfoot activity. No way that's connected. It's hard to say, but a lot of people are saying the same thing.
Yeah, like I said, I have never experienced it. Never have. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I know this. If I told somebody this the other day, if I'm walking out there and I'm tracking the Sasquatch and I see the Sasquatch and he vanishes in front of me, like dematerializes in front of me, my research is over. I'm done. That is completely above my pay grade. And I don't know what that is. What I do know is that this is a physical creature that is dematerializing in front of me. I will never find out the secret to that, and I don't want to, not yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's way above us. And one of my friends that does research, we call him the Ozark Hairy Man, but he said we need physical evidence, even if they are paranormal. We need to stay within our 3D realm. We need hairs. We need DNA. We need tracks, things that are in our capabilities to obtain and gather. And you know, if you try to take photos of something invisible, then you're kind of out of your league per se.
Yeah. And I think we do have DNA evidence, and I think some of this evidence, the evidence that has been sit in and that comes back, it'll come back either inconclusive or unknown primate. And what interests me about that is it comes back as a primate. Now, it's not going to be known because there's nothing that we have documented or applied a scientific name to say this is XYZ primate.
Mm-hmm.
We know a gorilla is a primate. We know an orangutan is a primate. We know a monkey is a primate, a chimp, primate. Sasquatch, what kind? See, it's a primate, but it's an unknown primate because we have not attached a name to it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing in our database to say this is this kind of primate, but it comes back as unknown primate. Of course, it's unknown. There's nothing documented. There's no name. We haven't put a name to it yet. Because I think honestly, we have everything. I think in the Bigfoot community, we have amassed enough evidence that it is not a secret if this thing is out there or not. It's out there. It's out there. When they're telling at 1 minute, in a 1 minute all of a sudden this becomes a national forest and you can't go on it no more. It's out there. The DNA evidence coming back, unknown primate. It's out there. The tracks, it's out there. What's happening is, I think and this is just me thinking, I think they're studying it more before they disclose it to the public.
Yeah, I hope
Now,
that's what's going on. And there's been research done. I mean, people always refer to Melba Ketchum. She said that
yeah,
it's a human mother and the father side's unknown. But I've also seen where Jeff Meldrum did a study, and it showed, I think, like human in there, but it also showed chimpanzee. And like you said, I think the unknown part is an unknown creature that has not been categorized. There's nothing to place there because it's
right.
part of it's not human and not any animal that's been logged in the DNA
So
gene pool.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, gorillas, chimps, and orangutans have a human, some kind of human DNA in it mixed in with it too.
Yeah. Yeah, same with like
And but
lobsters. Like lobsters, we share a lot of like DNA with them. It's like
yeah,
90%, so it's hard to say.
yeah. I don't think an ape made it with a human being and a Sasquatch come out. I don't believe that has happened at all, because we actually share some characteristics with dolphins. You know,
Mhm.
and they're aquatic, and there's some kind of connection between human beings and dolphins. You know, I don't know if it's a psychic connection or something, but what makes a dolphin want to protect a human being and when they're in shark infested waters if dolphins are around? You know,
Mhm. Yeah,
and
that's true.
that's a natural thing. That's not something that it's not trained to do it. It just does it. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, and I mean dolphins, they've been known to save people and it's the same with Sasquatch. But I mean, I guess they can
right?
also hurt you as well and
Yeah.
they show intelligence like a human.
Yep.
But in regards to the spiritual aspect, I mean, I don't know how religious you are, but like Jesus was a physical person that was on this planet, but he was also spiritual. And I think, we're spiritual too. Once we pass away, our soul leaves our body. And I mean, I don't have any evidence of that, but that's just my belief. So I think, they could be spiritual in their own way. And perhaps they have tapped into, I don't know, certain energies of this planet and they're able to do things that we can't because they've been around a lot longer than we have. And animals
Now,
they have their own abilities like Pokemon too, like an eel, it can shock you, things like that.
yeah, yeah. Now, for me, okay, so I'm a Christian, and I really try to stick with the Bible on a lot of things. And one of the things that the Bible teaches us is that as a human being, we are a body, we are a soul, and a spirit. And how it is our we are a spirit, we have a soul, and we live in a body, and all three work together to make us who we are. Um, Now, I was just talking to a guy about this over the weekend about Jesus and his resurrection, because we were talking about orbs and spirit beings and stuff. And I said, Jesus, when he was resurrected, if you'll remember, he was physical. He didn't resurrect as a spirit, he resurrected as a physical being. He had no blood, and he was able to move through objects. In other words, he was a physical body with spiritual properties. As I'm not saying that's what Sasquatch is doing, but just as far as, because we were talking about speed, I said he was able to move at the speed of thought. So this in the spirit realm, spirits move at the speed of thought. They can think someplace and be there. I said the fastest that humanity is able to go is the speed of light, or just faster, not faster than the speed of sound, but not that we can't even move the speed of light because it'll change our molecular structure moving that fast. But we just are able to get beyond the sound barrier. So a something moving at the speed of thought. You can't measure that. So if you can imagine you being where you are now and thinking someplace, like thinking of China and then being in China from where you are now in a matter of split second, blink of an eye, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
For if a Sasquatch has spiritual properties like that, then you got to ask yourself a question. We're not dealing with a primate. We're not dealing with a earthly creature. We're dealing with something that is way more than what we're perceiving it to be as far as earthly goes. Now, having said that, another thing that I would ask is, well, if it's that type of being, why is it not more? Why doesn't it build structures? Why does it act animalistic? Because when we and sometimes the term Nephilim gets brought up. That Bigfoot is a Nephilim. And my first thing is, wait a minute now. All the Nephilim had civilizations. All the Nephilim, built structures. They were super smart, and they was not hair covered. Goliath was a Nephilim. He was a giant, and he had 4 brothers that were named. And they were giants, but they were kings over people. So that I asked those questions because Nephilim were smart, intelligent beings.
Yeah.
Not human, but had the but were they were like they looked like super large humans. So, but like I said, I don't have the answers to the supernatural connection that Bigfoot has. I really don't know. Because everything is pure speculation when it comes to that. Because other than eyewitness accounts, we have nothing else to go on.
Yeah, that's very true. And I know when the angels bred with humans, they had giants as children.
Yeah.
But they also mentioned that they messed with animals and created things like chimeras and just different creatures. And I think you see that like in Greek mythology. So that could be a possible answer. And then there's also like the Native Americans talked about shapeshifters. And then like in Islamic texts, they talked about the jinn, and the jinn could transform into take like different forms and animalistic, I don't know, traits, I guess you can say.
Now, speaking of giants, okay, there is a text. There's an ancient text called the Book of the Giants. And I think it was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's in fragments. It's not like a whole book, but what they were able to translate out of that is that giants did do the same thing. Like what they did with humans, they also did with animals. And produce some things that were abominations. And I, you're right. That's where a lot of our Greek mythology comes from. Like a lot of the Greek gods are named after giants. Some of the animals of Greek mythology, they've pulled from giants and the things that they were doing. So a lot of it goes way back. And could a Sasquatch be that? I'm gonna say I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And like when the Vikings came here, they claimed that they saw giants on the shore. I think the Spaniards, whenever they got here, they claimed to see giants as well. Patagonia, that means I'm pretty sure that means Bigfoot or land of big feet. which like in Spanish is like pata grande, Bigfoot. So,
Wow. See, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like these giants were present everywhere. And, I mean, you hear about it all over the place. Even like the Solomon Islands in Japan, they claim that they've
Yeah.
seen things. In Vietnam, they claimed, the soldiers that they seen Bigfoot-like creatures there that were throwing rocks. In Russia, you got all kinds of stories as well. I
Yeah.
mean, it's all over the place. The Himalayan
And
mountains.
that's what's interesting about that's nothing another interesting thing about Bigfoot is it's global. It's a global creature. It's a global creature. It's like, where is it not?
Yeah, it's even in
Where is it
Australia.
not?
It's in Australia, the Yowie, and that's
Yep.
separated from the rest of the continents. I mean, maybe it
Yep.
was connected at one point.
So I mean, it's they they're they are here, and I just I don't have it. I don't have the answer for some of it, and that's what one thing about me is this this topic is so broad. It is so broad. Um, so I stick with the flesh and blood. Um, like I said, until I haven't seen it, I haven't experienced it do anything that I would say is supernatural. So I stick with, that's what I stick with. And I I will look for evidence according to the flesh and blood type creature. Not and I'm not discounting anything anybody has seen. I'm not discounting anybody else's experience because like I've always, people will ask me, "Well, how come you don't get a picture?" I said, "What's a picture going to do?" I said, "If you don't know me and I went out here and I saw one walking across my backyard and I snapped a picture and I showed it to you, the first words out of your mouth is that's a man in a suit. So you're not going to believe me." I said, "So if I took a picture and showed it to the world's it's irrelevant." I said, "There's film footage from 1967 that is the best film footage to ever be recorded in the history of the world regarding Sasquatch." I said, "You see muscle mass." I said, "You even see breast, muscle mass, muscle movement, the everything." I said, "And on top of that," I said, "You see Chewbacca?" I said, "That outfit from Star Wars that Chewbacca is, they modeled after this creature, and they look nothing alike." I said, "This thing is nice." I said, "You can't." They didn't have the technology to create something like that in 1967. I said, "To this day, that is being studied, and to this day, it is continually being denied." And I said, "What's a picture gonna do?" So the picture only benefits the one who took it.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely correct. And hopefully, in due time, we will find out what it is. I mean, I truly do believe that the Bible predicts events that are going to happen in the future, and it always has. Like the coming of
Yep.
Jesus Christ, they predicted all that. Revelations
Yep.
talks about how the end will take place and things that'll happen on this planet. We're kind of seeing that right now,
Oh
so
yeah.
we can't deny that the Bible's not real, and all the answers should be there, but maybe it just tells us what we need to know. But it also talks about the deception that'll happen in the end times. So there is some deception going on as far as like Bigfoot, UFOs, and
Yeah.
heck, even the
Yeah.
paranormal. Like
Yeah.
they've proven the paranormal,
Yeah.
that there's demons and ghosts. There's a lot of researchers
Yep.
out there that have gotten excellent evidence. It's just not talked about. So I think there
Yeah.
is deception going on.
So and you have to be and see that's one thing that I try to really be aware of because I do know that we are wrestling against what the Bible calls principalities and powers, rulers of darkness of this age, spiritual wickedness in high places. I do know we're dealing with a hierarchy of a demonic realm and its purpose. is to deceive. Its purpose is to draw people away from the things of God, away from um, what is good, and to keep people distracted from what is going on. You know, and I think because see, now the experiences of orbs and things that see, th- that wasn't a topic when I started. Um, Encounters like that you didn't really hear about, and as time went on, you started hearing, like for example, Bigfoot, UFO, and Loch Ness monster. They were the only connection they had was mysteries. You know, there wasn't this connection of Bigfoot coming from a UFO. There wasn't there you didn't have those type of connections back then, but now it's more commonplace.
Yeah.
And I personally believe that that could be a deception, you
Yeah,
know.
it very well could be. And I mean, there's people that can read minds, do telekinesis, levitate,
Oh yeah.
predict the
Yep.
future, and I don't know, like remote view. So it's hard to say what the Sasquatch are truly capable of.
Right. Right. There's a lot going on out here. And for me, instead of trying to tackle it all, because the thing is for me, okay, you got those who are looking for the truth, and then you got those who are or wanting to solidify the truth. I want to solidify the truth. And what I mean by that is I believe there's a bipedal primate out here. Well, I don't believe, I know there's a bipedal primate out here. I don't know what its full capabilities are. But from what I saw and what I've experienced, I'm dealing with an intelligent primate that walks on 2 feet covered in hair. It doesn't have the intelligence to build a civilization, and it's not at the level of creating fire. So and it has an advantage on me in the woods, and it's a powerful, powerful creature that, for the most part, is just as curious of us as we are of it, but knows how to keep a distance.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what I'm. That's my narrow field of investigation.
yeah. I mean
If I come
that's what they
if I
are.
if I come across where I see one and then I see some orbs or something like that, okay,
Mhm.
then I'll consider. Then I can consider. Okay, so I need to decide at this point. Do I want to pursue any further, or do I want to just document it and keep it where I'm at to see how much the evidence piles up to lead in another direction? You know,
Mhm.
because there's so, like I said, there's so much. So you really, I want to keep what I can understand and what I can do.
Yeah, you want to stay in your 3D physical realm of
Yep.
boundaries. And I've spoken with many researchers that agree with you that it's an unknown primate that's out there and it's better than us. They eat deer, they can break their necks, they travel, they migrate, they have family clans. But then I've also spoken with other researchers that are just experiencing things that are out of this world, and it's hard to
Yeah.
say, but I do think it's better to stay within your own 3D realm and try to find tracks, hair samples, try to get video, photo, audio, and
Right.
because if you're trying to chase an orb or something that's invisible, I mean, you're out of your league.
Yeah. You're not gonna get it. I mean, it's because you're dealing with something that's beyond our reality at that point. Like, it's like I tell others too, is that if you're dealing with something that is spiritual, or has those spiritual properties, you're dealing with something that operates outside of time. Anything spiritual operates within the realm of eternity. It's infinite. We have a finite mind. We have limitations. We're in a physical world. We're within the realms of time. These things operate by properties that transcend time. And the if something that has an infinite amount of knowledge compared to our finite knowledge, it's going we'll never catch it. We'll never figure it out.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's meant for us to figure it out. You
Yeah.
know, now it's one thing to ask questions and to wrestle with it, you know, but we don't want to let it consume us. I've seen many people in the Bigfoot field literally it consumed their entire life. Consumed their entire life. There's been researchers that have gone broke out here researching. And I hate to see that's the dark side of it. Is that people they've given their everything, their entirety to researching this.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, there's
and
a video on Amazon Prime, and they talk about that, and it actually has there's like an actual name for it that people that have encounters and it consumes their entire life, where they quit associating with their family and they're always out in the woods, always
yep,
spending their money on this, trying to figure it out. And
yep,
I kind of got that way for a little while until like I quit experiencing activity, and I was like, you know what, this isn't more important than my family. I'm going to keep the channel going. I'm going to keep researching, but I'm not going to just give up my entire life to look for something that may not even be there anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the thing is too, let's okay. So you find it, then what? It's like okay, what happens is it's a belief, and then when it becomes reality to you, especially if you've seen it, and you've seen it, it's like okay, so I saw it. So now at that after you see it and experience it, for me, like I said, it just solidified the truth. Now, going out, it's fun, and you build awesome relationships. It's great community of people from all walks of life that you can come together, share stories, share information, get tons of knowledge about this creature, and just be a part of the community. And I think that's where the benefit of research comes from. Not just finding the creature, but building relationships and community.
Hmm.
To where when it finally comes out, there'll be a communal celebration to this thing because everybody's contributed, everybody's done put something in. They didn't, it's not like they gave up their life to do it, but they contributed a good amount of resources, a good amount of energy, a good amount of um, some sacrifice, some sacrifice
Yeah.
to prove this creature.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. I mean, if somebody out there who's like a fan of the channel, they're like single, old, and they donate, I don't know, a couple million to me after they pass and say, use all of this to do Bigfoot research. Sure. I'll dedicate my
yeah,
life to it, but I'm not going to give up my job and quit providing for
right,
my family and being there for them for just my own interest of Bigfoot. But,
right.
but yeah, I mean, hopefully
Because
people can find a
there's
fine
no
balance.
yeah, and because there's no certainty. There's no certainty. It ain't like when you deer hunt. There's a certain certainty that you're going to shoot a deer. You know, with Bigfoot, there's no certainty. And then if you shot one and drop one, I don't think this is something I don't think we in the Bigfoot community actually really think about. So if we shot one and we dropped one, how you gonna get it out of there?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because where there's one, there's more. They don't never travel alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
You
like the
know.
Olympic project, I think that's what they're called. They're trying to put one down, and it's like, man, that's dangerous because if they find out you shot one of their own, they're going to kill you.
Yeah, yeah, and they're going to see you do it. That's the thing, because a lot of times when we see one, it's a distraction from the others.
It could be three
So,
months later. Let's say you did take the body, you proved it to the world. 3 months later, they could show up to your house and you just disappear.
yep,
Hmm.
yep.
But yeah, what I was saying earlier about the Bible, it has all the answers, and or I believe it does, and it kind of predicts the future. But there's also things that it doesn't mention, like all the different primates, ancient primates that have been found, and the
Right.
different hominids like Australopithecus and or Australopithecus, Homo erectus, and many other things. Like it doesn't talk about that in the Bible. So I
Right.
mean, it doesn't mention every single thing that's happened on this planet.
Exactly. It gives us, really, it gives us what we need to know, and that is who God is, His plan of redemption, and if we're going to accept it or not.
Absolutely. It's like
You
a
know, that's
blueprint to our lives, like how to live a better
yep,
life.
yep,
Hmm.
yep. I tell a lot of people too, like, you think of Jesus. Jesus was God in the flesh, and He came down here, and He didn't tell everything He knew. He told us what we needed to know at the time,
Yeah,
and that's it. You know, we're
absolutely.
not going we're not going to know everything.
Hmm.
We're not going to, and we have to be. And see, here's the thing: we have to be able to accept that.
Yeah, that's
See,
true.
I accept the mystery of Bigfoot. What I can't figure out, it's a mystery.
That's the fun of it. It's a
Yep.
mystery. And a lot of people will mention, what about the Book of Enoch? It talks about all this, but the problem with the Book of Enoch, and I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, it talks about the angels fell after the creation of man. And as Christians, we believe the angels fell before the creation of man, like there was a war in heaven. And it doesn't
Well,
really, it
you have
contradicts things.
it doesn't contradict. You have two sets.
Hmm.
You have the angels that followed Satan. Okay, those were angels that rebelled. The angels that fell are the ones that came down. They actually came down to help man, but when they took upon the flesh of man, they took upon the sin nature of man, and that's when they lusted after the daughters of men and produced a race of giants. Those are the fallen angels.
Okay, that
So
makes
you
a little
got the
more sense.
so you got the angels who rebelled, and then you got those who fell. You follow what I'm saying? And the ones who fell is the ones who produced the race of giants. Those angels, if you read in Second Peter, it talks about they're locked up in chains of darkness, awaiting their turn of judgment. The book of Enoch goes into more detail on the fallen angels. Because see,
Okay.
Lucifer is an angel who rebelled.
Hmm.
You know, um, and there's angels that followed him. They're
Right.
they're they're angels who rebelled, but the angels who fell says what it means by fallen, it means they left their estate. They left where they were supposed to be.
Yeah, it says like they left their place of habitation. I kind of think of that like whenever
Exactly.
people see UFOs, or I mean even cryptids. It's like, where are they coming from? Like where did these things come from?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
interesting. It's too bad that we just can't find like a definite answer. Like, oh, there it is. That's what's going on. Like we can only wonder, and I think that's how it is when you read anything in the Bible. Like you find meaning in it and you have to study it, and like you figure out, oh, this place means this ancient city, or this means like
Yeah.
this old Greek god, but you never really know truly what it means, especially with like Jesus, how he spoke with parables. We can only assume, and that's why they always say study the Bible, because it's really a lot to break down and a lot to look at. But I mean, it does
Well,
have. Oh, go ahead.
one of the things that I study, one of the things that I how I study the Bible is through historical context and cultural context. I don't look at it through our eyes. I look at it in its original setting, under its historical context of what's going on at that time, and then from there, I pull out the principle or the meaning of what he's trying to say. Because we don't, the Bible was written in an agricultural culture, so there's a lot of things regarding the rising of the sun, rain, um, sowing and reaping, you know, wheat and tares. See, we don't really grasp that because we're an industrialized culture, not an agricultural culture. Now, a farmer would grab a hold to it quick. what they do. You know, so that's how I approach the scripture. And then you have in an ancient culture, they were a what do you call it? A highly spiritual culture. You know, they believed in the supernatural. So they you know they discussed angels and fallen ones and Nephilim and watchers and stuff like that. Like that's something that it was like every day to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they didn't
You
have
know.
technology back then, so
Yeah.
they referred to things like as plants, animals,
Yep.
thou, thee. You know, like they even spoke completely different.
Yep.
Okay, so let's tie back into your first Bigfoot encounter. Whenever you chased this creature down or tracked it down, what did the creature look like? Can you just describe the features a little bit?
Okay, so I didn't get a good look. All right, because like I said, it was when I saw it, it was already in motion. Now, I didn't see any facial features. From what I can tell, it would have been a juvenile creature, roughly about 5 foot tall, because it wasn't big, you know. And at the time, I was not smart enough to not chase a juvenile. Okay. Um, and it was lanky and fast, but smart
What color
because
was it?
it was jet black,
Okay.
jet black. Hair had a little bit of sheen to it because like I said, it was a sunny day. It was bright and sunny. It was like three in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
It had the hair had a little sheen. But it was lanky. Uh, trying to think, and it was just quick. Yeah, like because I didn't like I said, I didn't as far as features go, other than it running like a human and being roughly about 5 foot tall. Because I'm 6'4". Okay, so I was definitely taller than it, but it was faster than me. Like I said, it was pacing me.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't let me get real close. Well, and it didn't run away from me. It kept me where I can see it. It stayed where I can see it. Now I didn't see it 100% of the time as I was running. And what I mean by it was like cutting through trees is like I would see it at 1 minute and then it would disappear behind brush and stuff, and then it would I see it again coming from this other tree or what have it, and I was just able to keep up with it through that way because it wasn't like I was watching it the whole time running.
Yeah. And when you said
The,
that it had a shine in its hair, like, did it kind of look like it used conditioner, like it was well groomed? Not
well,
saying it did,
no,
but like a really
no,
nice
it was
coat.
it it looked like a nice coat.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like a nice coat. Um, it was a little it was a little scraggly, but it glistened a little bit in the sunlight.
What?
Not like a glowing thing, but like a jet black like a jet black dog with uh like a if you had a Saint Bernard
Mm-hmm.
that was hairy and but jet black, that's kind of what it looked like. That's kind of the coat, the what the hair would have looked like.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And what time of day was it? Like, what was the weather like that day?
Oh, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was sunny out. Temperature wise, it was about like I'd say about 70, 75. It was real pretty day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's about the time that I encountered the juvenile here on my land. It was about 3 in the day during the summer. I think it was July. Beautiful sunny
So,
day. It was around 90 degrees, but it wasn't hot because there was like a lot of like white clouds up in the sky, so it provided
yeah,
shade and there was like a slight breeze, but it was a beautiful day. Middle of the day too, so it blows my mind.
and that's the interesting thing because it seems like now where we were, I don't think normally there would have been people down there. That's why I think it was down there,
Yeah,
like
same
out
here.
in the broad daylight like that. Because normally, nobody's out at that time of day down in that area.
Hmm. During these encounters at that campground, did you ever hear like logging going on far off in the distance? Did you notice anything like that?
Nope, no kind of construction at all.
Okay.
No kind of construction at all.
Okay,
Like
moving on. Oh, go ahead.
off in the distance, you would see your occasional brush fire,
Hmm.
but it would like be way, like, oh man, miles away, because you can see from the fire tower, and that's what that was for, was kind of look out for fires and stuff like that. So every now and again you see fires, way off the distance.
Yeah. Was there anyone nearby that had like chickens, anything like that? Like you could hear roosters going off, anything?
Now, yeah, at the bottom of the mountain, there was people. They had a farm. There was one time I had got lost up there and wound up in this man's cow pasture, and he had a bull. That's a story for another day, right there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, he had a bull and he had cows. I mean, there was a whole farm at the bottom of this mountain. But there was never any reports of any cows messed with. Nobody's chickens were stolen. None of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So 5 years later, at the same area, you encountered another creature. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was the same area, but not on the mountain.
Okay. What?
Like same area, not the mountain.
Yeah, and what did this creature look like? Can you describe the features?
Now, this creature, it had, so the face like glistened off of the camp light. So this one was probably 7 or 8 feet, somewhere around in there. Um, and its eyes, we caught the eye shine first, and the eyes glue the same color as they reflected the same color as the camp light. So we had a lantern and fire going. So you had a like a emerald color it was reflecting. And his face, from what I can tell, if you look at a gorilla's face and you know how a gorilla has an elongated face, well, you smash it together a little bit. That's kind of what it looked like in the face, and its skin had a sheen to it also, like it was I want to say moist.
Like oily?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. So this
yeah.
was at nighttime. Is that correct?
This was like it was the sun was going down, like the sun was going down, but if you look in the woods it was dark. So we're talking like uh this is probably about 8 9 between 7 and 9 o'clock in the evening. But where this was like I can't remember if it was the fall or the spring. It was one of the two. But because we never went up there in the summer, we never went up there in the winter. It was um like late spring or early spring or late fall. So it was one of those seasons, and that was between around 7 and 9 o'clock, where the sun was going down. But when you look in the woods, it was dark.
Yeah. Yeah, the
But
woods
and
gets a lot darker earlier
it
than.
was dark and it was dark enough where we had to have a other than a campfire, we had to have a lantern up
Okay.
when we started walking in that direction.
Yeah, and what was there a lot of pine trees? I know like in the pines it gets a lot darker than what it does out in the open. Like you'll be in the pines and it's just like almost nighttime, and then you walk out into the open field or parking lot and it's like daytime again.
Yeah, it was all right. So there wasn't a lot of pines, but I don't know the name of these trees. I couldn't tell you the name of trees, but there was a lot of trees. It wasn't, and there was some thick underbrush too, because it walked through the underbrush. It never came out on the trail, stayed right there in the tree line. but we were able to see it because it you know, like I said, it was swaying.
Why do you think it was swaying back and forth?
I don't know. That's something that's always intrigued me. Um, and I think that's a trait of primates where they'll sway back and forth when they're looking at something.
Yeah, and throw
They'll
rocks,
just
things like that.
yeah, they kind of rock back and forth. Now this thing here wasn't threatening. It wasn't threatening us. And anyway, it just was just like standing there swaying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. It's like a curiosity, paranoia type of behavior.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I'd hate to jump back to the first encounter, but why do you think the creature followed you back?
That I don't know.
Was
I
it
hope
territorial?
I mean there's a couple of things. Um well, right off the bat, one thing I because I guess I hollered at it. I was talking to it literally, you know, that told me it was okay to follow me back. Now, whether it understood me or not, it's a whole different thing. Um, but just I want to say checking to see if I was any more of a threat than I was. Keeping an eye on me, making sure I didn't do nothing stupid. That's what I think. I was chasing its youngin, you know, and I stopped and it seen me stop. I spoke and it seen me speak, and I slowly backpedaled and I walked back to camp. So at one point, I may have been a threat. At another point, I was nothing of a threat. And it just, it's a possibility that it wanted to make sure that I wasn't still a threat. And then, and these are just some speculating here. It could have said, "This man ain't got no idea what it's doing, so we're gonna keep an eye on him till he get back to his people, make sure nothing mess with him."
Yeah, that very well could be. Did you stay the night and camp there?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and
We didn't stay down. We didn't stay down in that area.
Uh-huh.
Well, I went on back to base camp. So we had base camp set up. Yeah, and they circled the camp. They circled the camp that night. That's about all they did was circle the camp.
Did they break any limbs? Do any wood knocks whenever they circled the camp?
Sometime they would. Like you would hear the wood knocks at a distance before they came and started circling the camp.
Yeah.
And this wasn't all the time either.
Mm-hmm.
This was not all the time. Like sometimes you would hear the wood knocks, and we'd be like, "Yeah, they'll be here in a minute." And within an hour or two, there you could hear them circling the camps, shuffling, snapping twigs and stuff, and not purposely snap, but stepping on twigs. And we would go out there after them. We would go out there, flashlights blaring. Sometimes we would get eye shine and they would dart behind a tree, and then we're like, "Here, over here." And we'd go over there and they'd be gone. Go back to camp a little bit, and then here they come again. They'd circle around. And then sometimes, we would you'd hear them whistling off in the distance, and they wouldn't come to the camp. You'd hear them whistling. And then there'd be times where you don't hear nothing. Next thing you know, they're circling the camp. At times when we would ignore them, they would throw rocks in the fire, stick in the fire. We were up there long. It seemed like we were up there enough and frequent enough that they knew who we were. They knew what we would alert to. They knew how to get our attention. They knew we would go out after them from time to time. They knew. Now, before we go any further, I want to say this. Like I said, from 89 to 2012, yes, we had a lot of evidence up there, a lot of stuff go on, but more often than not, nothing happened. When people when I tell my stories and stuff, it seems like something happened every time. It seemed like it was a frequency, but it didn't work that way.
Yeah.
There were a couple of years straight, nothing. It just was a camping trip, you know. So I wanted to put that out there that yes, we have researched this area quite a bit, and we've been up there quite a bit, but everything didn't happen like that. It didn't. What I mean by that, like that, every time we went up there, something didn't happen. And there
Yeah.
was plenty of times in a row that we would go up there and nothing happened. It'd just be a camping trip,
Yeah. That's how it is with my
you know.
videos. More often than not, nothing happens, and that's typical. I mean, there's a lot of people that camp out there. There's a lot of YouTubers that make camping channels and they never experience anything. So
Yeah,
that's the norm. But I mean, whenever you see one, you're having activity, that's when a lot of this stuff happens. You know,
yeah,
you'll have a lot of
yep,
stories from just several days or like a time frame of several months, and then like you said, you'll hit it hard like, oh, we're going to figure out what this is, and as
yep,
years progress, like nothing really happens.
yep.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And for your listeners, anybody that's wanting to get into this field, the one key element that you have to have is patience, because it don't not it when you have activity, you have it, but when you don't, you absolutely don't have nothing. Nothing's going on, and it's like it's a cat and mouse game.
Hmm.
You may find an area where there was a sighting, but you have to research that area to see if this thing is living there or if it was just a one-off event. Because a lot of times it can be just a one-off event, and you spend months researching this area, and this thing never comes back to it.
Yeah, that's true. And even
You
if you
know
have the patience, like let's say you're trying to document the activity, it's hard to predict when it's going to happen. You might get there and
exactly.
step out of your car and everything happens before you have your recorders set up or your camera ready.
Yep.
Or maybe your
Yep.
batteries die and things happen, or you hit pause on your camera and that's when the wood knocks happen. It's just so hard to predict when something's going to
Yep.
take place.
Yep. There's no
There's no
there's no
certainty.
cue.
No.
Uh-uh. Nope.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Okay. Do you plan on doing more research here in the future?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Like I said, this weekend here, this past weekend, we went out and we didn't do an investigation, but we went to a spot to have a memorial for our friend that had just passed away. And that was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful ceremony that we had, and we just to honor him and his family for their contributions and just being a friend and being a dear friend to a lot of us. So we did that this weekend, and I don't know when the next trip will be planned, but there are some things coming down the pike that we're going to be doing some research on and changing up our game a little bit and seeing where we are. But oh yeah, the research don't stop. The fun doesn't stop.
Yeah, absolutely. They need to make it like baseball teams with all the different Bigfoot research groups and like
Right.
have like
Right.
the major leagues. Everybody goes out at the same time in their own areas in different
Yes.
states, and whoever can come up with the best evidence wins the trophy.
Yep. Yep. I just, I want to see because I mean, this weekend was something that, what I realized is that there were a lot of us, different backgrounds, different theories, different beliefs on what the creature is and what it's not, and just from all different areas. And we come together, and there was no arguing, but there was learning, there was experiencing, there was it was community. And it was a community that we were gathered around this one individual. His name was Bob Grumpy Wilson, who we loved, who we cherished. And through this one man, seemed like he brought together all fields. And we were able to get along. We were able to share stories on how we met him, and just celebrate his life and his contribution to the field of research. And if we can pull people together from all these different backgrounds, and just enjoy the moment of research, share information, share evidence. There's no reason we can't prove that this thing exists. One of the things that I've always said, I think as a Bigfoot community, we already have all the evidence we need. And I mean, we know what it eats. We know we know kind of the areas it stays in. We know its habitats. Its signs. We know its mannerisms. We can recognize an area that it's at. We know this. We know this creature. We know this creature. Okay, we know it. It's the areas where they're mystery that we kind of get off track and we lose the scientists. But I think if we just come together as one community, share information, because if this thing is connected with high strangeness, you know, there's enough people with that are credible, quality people that have experienced something nobody else has. And rather than discredit this person because of his experience, we need to accept him and look more into it and say, hey man, this dude's telling the truth. Saying something happened. The man seen something turn into a ball of light. That happened. Now, what it is, we don't know. Let's not speculate, but we don't know. We're going to look into that. Take it as this man has we sometimes we want to discredit somebody's experience because we don't know them, but we need to stop that. And trust them until there's no reason to trust them. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing to understanding Bigfoot is remaining open-minded.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, Tony, is there anything else you'd like to add to the interview?
No, I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. It was, I thank you for having me on. I thank you for inviting me on, I enjoy just talking to Bigfoot, talking about the experiences, talking about the what ifs, what can be's, and the mystery of it. I really enjoy it. I enjoy researching. I'm out here. Like I said, I've always been a believer in Bigfoot. It's when I saw my first track that solidified my belief. That turned belief into reality, and it's been my reality ever since then. And that's me.
Absolutely.
That's me.
That's how it was for me as well. I was doing wood knocks on the river and doing some whoops after watching Finding Bigfoot for a while, and one pushed down a tree during the daylight hours, and right at nighttime it came up behind us and screamed so loud you could feel it reverberate in your body. And that's what it took for me to believe in Bigfoot. I mean, I believed and it became reality right there, but I was still, like, man, does this exist? But I knew they did. I just wasn't for sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Tony, I appreciate you for being such a great guest on the channel, for sharing your experiences and encounters with everyone openly, and that truly means a lot.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was no problem, and you were probably one of the best guests I've ever had on the channel, so that really means a lot to me.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and good luck to you and anyone else that you do research with in these areas. I hope you guys get the best evidence there is out there, and I just wish you guys luck and safety.
Thank you, and you too, sir. You too.
All right, I appreciate it, and you have an excellent night.
You too. Good night.
Yep, take care.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Tony, thank you very much for getting in contact with me and sharing your encounters and experiences from the state of Georgia. I am sure it's been a wild ride for you researching Bigfoot, and it certainly has its ups and downs, and it's always a wild goose chase, my friend. One of my research friends refers to it as Where's Waldo, but you can't give up. You have these experiences, these strange sightings that take place in the woods, and you just have to keep pushing through the pain and the time that you spend out there. I know it's a sacrifice being out there researching this activity, but it does have its payoff. Eventually, you will have a close-up eye sighting with one of these creatures, and you just have to hope that it's a friendly encounter. Whenever I was researching the activity, I wasn't sure what it was, but I always kept Bigfoot in the back of my mind, and I wasn't too sure if it existed. I had experiences and strange encounters prior to that, but I'd never seen them. And finally, when that moment presented itself to me, I was blown away. I couldn't believe what I was looking at and the fact that these creatures existed. It really opened up a lot of doors in my mind because I always questioned the paranormal and religion, and I knew once I laid eyes on one of these creatures that all those things that people talked about and dismissed in the past were actually true. There are ghosts out there. Jesus Christ is real. Maybe there is Dogman. Maybe UFOs really do exist. And there's a reason why a lot of people claim to have seen these things, and that's because they are out there. I think my top states to research would certainly be Missouri, the Carolinas, Tennessee, and Georgia. Of course, Kentucky as well. I get a lot of reports from those areas, and it seems like these creatures are all over the United States, so not just these states have Bigfoot. They are pretty much everywhere on the West Coast, the Midwest, and the East Coast. Of course, there are areas that don't really have too many reports, but they are still there. But anyways, I appreciate everyone for watching on YouTube or Spotify, whichever one you choose. Thank you everyone for your support. Please be sure to subscribe, and take care everyone.